You're standing in line. Your phone is dead. There is nothing to do. 30 seconds pass. It feels like 10 minutes. You start tapping your foot. You start reading cereal boxes you don't even care about. You would almost rather feel something unpleasant than feel nothing at all. But the real answer to why boredom feels this unbearable is far stranger than you have a short attention span. Your brain isn't broken when it does this. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do. Boredom is not empty time. It is a warning light. In 2014, psychologist Timothy Wilson ran an experiment that sounds almost like a joke. He put people alone in a room with nothing to do except think, or press a button that gave them a mild electric shock. Many people, most of them men, chose the shock, repeatedly, just to avoid sitting quietly with their own minds. Why would a brain choose pain over stillness? Because for most of human history, stillness was never actually still. Think about your ancestors, tens of thousands of years ago, resting in a clearing between hunts. Their bodies were quiet. Their minds were not. A mind that stayed alert during downtime noticed the rustle in the grass before the predator did. A mind that drifted into total calm sometimes didn't wake up the next morning. Boredom in that world wasn't a nuisance. It was a survival prompt whispering one instruction. Something needs your attention. Go find it. You inherited that whisper. You just don't live in that world anymore. Here's where it gets stranger. Boredom researcher John Eastwood at York University describes boredom not as having nothing to do, but as wanting to be engaged and being unable to connect with anything around you. It's not a lack of stimulation. It's a mismatch between what your mind is asking for and what your environment is offering. That distinction changes everything, because it means boredom isn't a punishment for laziness. It's a signal that your engagement systems are running and finding nothing to lock onto. Like a radio searching for a station, scanning static, waiting for a signal to grab hold of. And your ancestors' environment was full of signals, weather changing, animal tracks, the position of the sun, a rustle that might be food or might be a threat. Their boredom, when it hit, was quickly resolved because the world around them was dense with things that mattered to survival. Your environment is different. It's not less stimulating. It might even be more stimulating than any environment in human history. But most of that stimulation isn't the kind your ancient alarm system was built to notice, so the whisper never quite gets answered. It just gets louder. This is where psychologist Sandi Mann's research becomes important. Mann, who has spent years studying boredom at the University of Central Lancashire, found something counterintuitive. Boredom doesn't just make you uncomfortable, it makes you more creative. In one of her studies, participants who were given a boring task first, like copying numbers from a phone book, went on to generate more creative ideas afterward than participants who skipped the boring task entirely. Why would tedium fuel imagination? Because when the outside world stops offering anything worth grabbing, your mind doesn't just idle. It starts generating its own material. It wanders into memory. It runs simulations of the future. It recombines old ideas into new ones. Neuroscientists call this the default mode network, a system in your brain that activates specifically when you are not focused on an external task. Your ancestors had long stretches of exactly this kind of unstimulated time, walking for hours to find water, sitting by a fire with no screen, no book, no music. That dead time wasn't wasted. It was where planning happened, where storytelling was born, where the first myths were probably assembled, one idle wandering thought at a time. You almost never get that kind of stretch anymore. The moment boredom starts to rise in you now, what happens? You reach for your phone. Within seconds, sometimes without even deciding to, the whisper gets answered by an infinite scroll of content built specifically to hijack your attention system. Not to satisfy it, to hijack it. This is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Your ancient alarm system, the one built to say, something needs your attention, go find it, now gets answered 100 times a day by something that gives your brain a flicker of novelty without ever letting the deeper signal complete its purpose. You never get to the wandering. You never get to the default mode network doing its quiet work. You just get another flicker and another and another. So what happens to a mind that never gets bored anymore? Some researchers believe it may be losing something important. Not comfort, Capacity. The capacity to sit with an unanswered question long enough for an original thought to form. The capacity to notice to sit with an unanswered question long enough for an original thought to form. The capacity to notice your own internal world instead of constantly outsourcing your attention. Think about the last time you had an original idea, a genuinely new one, not something you saw somewhere else first. Where were you? Statistically, you were probably not looking at a screen. You were probably in the shower, or driving, or lying in bed before sleep. Moments your ancestors would recognize instantly. Quiet, unstimulated, boring. Here's the twist most people never consider. Boredom might not be the opposite of a meaningful life. It might be one of its prerequisites. Every insight your brain has ever produced on its own, every plan, every private realization about your own life was assembled during a gap. A gap your ancestors were forced to sit inside because there was nothing else available. A gap you now fill almost automatically, the second it opens, without even noticing you're doing it. You're not weak for reaching for your phone in line at the store. You're running software that is tens of thousands of years old, doing exactly what it was built to do, in an environment engineered to exploit that exact instinct. But here's the part worth sitting with. What if the next time boredom rises in you, you let it sit there for just a little longer? Not because discomfort is virtuous, because that discomfort is your oldest system trying to open a door your ancestors walked through every single day of their lives. A door to planning, a door to memory, a door to the very thing modern life has almost engineered you out of ever finding. You're standing in line again. Your phone is dead. There is nothing to do. This time, you don't reach for anything. You just let the silence stretch, and for the first time in a long time, you notice what your own mind does when nobody is feeding it something else.
वीडियोस बनाने हैं, फिल्मोरा है ना।